Hello, welcome to Family Tech Talk Night, November 16th edition. My name is Doug. I'm going to be your host this evening. A few items of housekeeping. We're going to have a chat room that's going to have a link in it that we'd like you to go ahead and use to sign in. If you could go ahead and use that to sign in, and also you can, in that same chat, you can also announce where you're from. I know we have several schools that are joining us tonight. I'll give you a couple of minutes to go ahead and respond to that. We'll have we'll stay in this mode for just a couple of minutes. Let people go ahead and join us. We also do have an interpreter on the line, Gigi. She's actually in a separate channel. So if you look at the screen, we have this globe icon in your Zoom settings. If you click on that globe icon, you can actually switch to our interpreter session, and you'll hear the interpreter audio rather than mine. For the Spanish speakers that are joining us, see some folks here from Chesterfield, Virginia. Welcome. Again, there is a sign-in link in the chat. We have some of my colleagues that are helping out with tonight's webinar. They are going to post that sign-in link a few times over the next few minutes. And if you could go ahead and use that link to go ahead and sign in, go ahead and give us your name and where you're from, your email, if you choose, the school district name, and go ahead and submit that. That will be used to go ahead and track your participation and get that information back to the individual that set up this session for you all tonight. I see people checking in from all over the United States, from East Coast to West Coast. It looks like we've got Georgia all the way to California here. Welcome, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Okay, once again, welcome to our Family Tech Talk night. I'm going to go ahead and get started here, but we will continue to post that link, that sign-in link, a few more times. We have a lot to go over, and I just kind of like to jump into this as much as I can. But I do want to welcome all of you to our Family Tech Talk night. My name is Doug Binns. I'm a cybersecurity professional. I operate and manage our support and training lab data centers for our Tipping Point product line. And I've been doing this type of presentation in this format just the past couple of years, but I traditionally have gone into schools and done presentations to the kids and the teachers and the parents directly. This is a little bit of a different format that we had to switch to over the past few years since the pandemic started. But I definitely want to welcome you to our presentation tonight on internet safety for kids and families. We have a Q&A section in the Zoom tools. If you have any questions, I encourage you to please ask the questions in the Q&A section rather than the chat. The chat is going to have a lot of responses to our questions. Go through it, and if you try to ask a question in the chat, it will probably get lost and not get answered. So please use the QA, the question and answer option to submit your questions for me. Again, if you're just now joining us, there is a link to sign in posted in that chat. There is also, for Spanish speakers, we do have Gigi, and our interpreter on the line. She is in a different audio channel. If you click on the globe icon, which you can see pictured in the lower left-hand corner of the screen here, you can click on that icon and switch to the Spanish channel, and our interpreter will be speaking Spanish so that you can understand better if that is your preference. Again, I want to welcome you. We have plenty of schools being represented tonight throughout the country. every corner of the United States, it looks like Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin, California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia. Some of these towns are right in my backyard, and some of them are far distances away. So I do welcome all of you. Session should run between 80 and 90 minutes. There's a lot of information, and believe me, I can talk about this for a lot more than 90 minutes. I've got a lot of background and a lot of detail. I've got about 15 years of experience in this field. So there will be a recording of the session that will be available back to your schools. Usually we get those back to the individual that set up the connection to join this program tonight. And again, as I said, submit your questions in the Q&A section. And then at the end of this presentation, there will be a survey available as well. Let's start with a question for y'all. We're going to go ahead and put this out in, there's going to be a little poll window that'll pop up. And what we want to know is, how old is your oldest child? Answering this question will help me tailor some of the discussion to better fit your needs. So A, 5 years old or younger, 6 to 10 years old, C, 11 to 14 years old, or D, 15 years or older. Now, I have 3 adult children. My youngest is just turned 18. So I've got a lot of experience with all these different age groups. So you're in good company when it comes to this. I do see that we have 100% answers. So let's go ahead and end that poll. And what you'll find is that the results are definitively 11 to 14 years old is the dominant answer. 6 to 10 years old is a close second. 15 and older. I think the 6 to 10 and 11 to 14-year-old ranges, those are probably the most influential years that our youth are kind of defined by. The 6 to 10 years old, they're going to be listening to their parents more than their peers. Once they hit that 11-year-old mark, that's when they start really listening to their peers. So we try to help you guys guide your children when we're having these discussions based on that information. I'll try and tailor my conversation more towards that 6 to 14-year-old range, however. What are you most interested in discussing tonight? We have A, managing screen time for my kids. B, helping my kids, actually, I'm sorry. B, helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content. C, dealing with online bullying or hate. D, getting ideas for positive uses of the internet. Or E, not sure, just here to learn something new. I can fill in any one of those answers with plenty of content, I'm certain. So we'll give it a few moments to fill up the scoreboard. Okay. I'm seeing fewer answers coming in, so let's go ahead and end that poll now. And the winner on this one is it's B, helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content. We definitely have some good tips and ideas about that. So we'll make sure that we go over that. We will touch on all of these topics a little bit, but I'll try and spend a little bit more time on the age-appropriate content conversation. However, our approach to our program and delivering our messages is all about encouraging good digital citizenship. Now, what we'd like to do is try and unpack that term a little bit and talk about what it really means to have good digital citizenship. It's definitely about safety and security. We definitely want to make sure that we're having the conversation about how to be safe, how to secure our equipment, how to secure our devices. We also want to educate our youth about safety and security overall. We also like to educate our youth about digital literacy. The concept of digital literacy is more than just talking about safety and security, but it's also knowing how to use the internet for good, knowing how to use our devices in a healthy manner, um, knowing uh, how to encourage good behaviors when you're online and when you're interacting with social groups online, peers and friends. Um, and then we also like to encourage opening that conversation. Just having the understanding of these basics does not necessarily define for our youth a good way of mastering the content that is the internet. Having an open discussion with your youth, your children, and their peer groups is definitely going to help them understand how to master um, the uh, the use of the internet, the use of the devices, knowing about what not only you shouldn't be doing, but knowing what you can do and how that's going to benefit themselves and others and the world around us. So we like to have the whole discussion surrounding digital citizenship. Um, we're going to cover a lot tonight, as I discussed, but we kind of lump it into these four pillars. Being online, which we all are these days, it seems. Being safe online, being kind, that's both in respect to ourselves and to others, and then being savvy, understanding how to use the technology that's laid out in front of us, and making sure that you have a good framework to build upon these conversations you're going to be having with your kids um, from here on out. The internet's here, it's not going anywhere. The devices that we all use, they're just going to become more complex and we're going to become more dependent on them. So we definitely want to make sure you have a good framework to start with. There's plenty of information out there about each of these items that we're going to cover. We're just going to go maybe an inch deep on each of these conversations, maybe a little deeper in some areas. But when we're talking about being online, we're talking about environment, rules, setting the example. Being safe online is about the privacy and protecting your information. Being kind, that's kindness, of course, to yourself and to others. And then setting good habits by being savvy. It's good habits, good uses of the internet, as opposed to developing poor habits that could negatively impact you. To start with, we like to talk about setting up the environment. Again, every good framework has to have a good foundation. So we try to set up the environment to promote good physical health to start with. A couple of years ago, we were faced with a pandemic that drove everybody back out of the offices, out of the schools. Everybody started working from home and taking remote learning courses. And that kind of really pushed us into a different world. I mean, we were already using our devices, but now we're dependent on our devices. So we encourage you to take a look at your environment where you're using your devices. Are you using it at the kitchen table, or do you have an office dedicated to it? We always recommend considering different environmental factors such as appropriate ergonomic seating, a good chair, having your monitors set appropriate at an appropriate height. They make different types of desks now that can raise and lower to meet the needs of different sized individuals. There are some tools where you can have a desktop mechanical lift that will raise and lower your computer and your monitors without having to completely replace your desk. There's all sorts of different types of seating that's available. I always recommend finding an environment in your house, if you can, that has limited distractions. Get away from the TVs if you're going to be focusing on school, work, and working from home. Try to not put yourself in the path of the household where you're going to be having visual distractions, things like that. Studies have shown that the lighting from monitors can have an impact on the brain stimulus. We recommend making sure that you have appropriate lighting, not just the monitors, but have appropriate ambient lighting as well. We recommend blue light glasses, or if you wear regular glasses, get a film added to your glasses. They're available from your eye doctors now when you order your glasses, which automatically filters out some of that blue light that's produced by the artificial LED lights that are in our monitors and in our modern day environment. We also recommend the 30-30-30 rule, which basically says every 30 minutes, take 30 seconds to refocus your eyes to some object or something approximately 30 feet away. It'll help reduce eye strain and anxiety and stress. One thing I do is at least once an hour, I get up and I go and run around with my dogs. I take them out, run around in the backyard, play with them a little bit, and that gets me into a behavior where I'm regularly taking breaks and moving my body. Our bodies are meant to move, and you can tell your kids that too. I mean, you could probably see your kids doing that when they're in those younger years. You cannot stop them from moving. So give them that opportunity to move and stretch their legs and move around and run around, and encourage that behavior, because that's actually a good habit to get into when you're sitting in front of a computer screen for hours and hours each day. More to the physical environment of your network. We all have these fancy new wireless routers these days. They're full of features, they're full of settings and configurations. But the one thing that most common misconfiguration of off-the-shelf routers is that they aren't set up right from the start. You want to limit the access to it. You have to change the default password. In fact, I recommend, if you can, eliminate the default username as well. Replace it with something a little more personal. We'll get into what kind of passwords and how to develop good password habits a little bit later in the presentation. But the first thing you got to do with that off-the-shelf router is definitely immediately replace the password and eliminate any default settings that are built into it. One other thing that's recommended, and most modern routers will support this, is have multiple networks. We're talking about Wi-Fi networks in general. Some houses are pre-wired these days with Ethernet cabling, so you can use that as well. However, when you split your network, you can split to where you have a more private network that you would be using for business and school type activities, and then you have the guest network, which most routers, like I said, support, and you can use that for the personal devices, the cell phones, the game consoles, the friends' devices when the friends of the kids come over and they want to get on your wireless network. Of course, make sure that they have appropriate security protections on their devices before you let them hook up to your network, but you definitely separate that away from your personal private emails and work files and things like that by creating two separate networks. Some routers even support more than that. So if you have like an Internet of Things, like your home automation type stuff, if you have an option to add a third wireless network for home automation products, keep those separate. They actually get updated less frequently than everything else does. So I would consider those more of a threat to your personal information. But at the very least, try to separate it into two. Use a Wi-Fi extender. If you find some spots in your household where you are struggling to receive signal from your wireless router, absolutely install a wireless extender. Reposition your wireless router to be more central in the house. Adjust the settings as well. Some of these routers will have settings that allow you to adjust the strength of the signal. I always recommend adjusting it down to where your neighbors can't see your wireless signal. You can't reach the wireless signal from the street. And then once you have it all set up and working well, I also recommend disabling the SSID broadcast. That's the name of your wireless signal. Disable that, because somebody driving by or walking by might still be able to detect that signal if you have the broadcast of that signal enabled. And it's always a good idea just to kind of keep that generally hidden. Once you have all your devices set up, they should all be able to connect to it regardless of whether you're broadcasting your wireless name or not. And then finally, we recommend within the environment, stagger the use of your internet access. We all have a kind of a set cap on bandwidth on a lot of these connections. And the more people that are doing the more things, trying to use the same pipe, the more latency you're going to introduce into your home network. So have work time for work, have homework time for homework. Maybe have the kids sitting at the dining room table with their school laptops doing their homework while mom and dad are preparing dinner. And that way you're not consuming bandwidth while they are. If somebody is doing a lot of gaming or streaming, make sure they're doing it in a period of time during the day when more important, more sensitive things are not being done as well. That's a good way to balance the bandwidth consumption throughout your network. We also recommend using security software on every device. Like I said, even when the kids' friends come over, I won't let in my house, I won't let my kids' friends connect to my network unless they show me their device and show me they have some sort of security software. I don't want a compromised device coming into my network and compromising my network. Most modern routers, most modern network devices for your household have a built-in firewall. I said I'll talk a little bit about using strong passwords here in a moment. And then multi-factor authentication and VPNs. You hear a lot about these things these days. Multi-factor authentication allows you to not only have a password for a particular site or an app, but it also requires you to have an additional form of authentication. Maybe it'll send your cell phone a text message with a secret code that you have to type in. Or maybe it sends a special app on your phone, what we call a push, that you have to respond to in a certain amount of time before it'll let you log into that site. If those tools are available to you on websites and tools and apps that you use, definitely enable them and use them. It increases the security, makes it harder for the bad guys to compromise your apps and your access to those apps. VPNs, again, you hear advertisements about these. Thing that I like to note about VPNs, they're great for point-to-point encrypted tunnels and connections. However, once that connection gets to the other end, that's where it tends to stop being encrypted. If you use a VPN service, it'll help with anonymity. It'll kind of hide who you are, what your public IP address is, where you're at. It prevents people from knowing your location physically, your geolocation. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that every website you're visiting through that VPN is secure. So bear that in mind. Make sure that you're still looking for that HTTPS indicator to indicate that encryption is still in play on whatever website you're using. And then I still recommend only using reputable websites to ensure that you're not going someplace where your information could be compromised. I'm going to take a quick pause here because I do see some questions in the chat. Some look like they got answered. Is there a way to block kids from getting on the internet on an iPhone? We will discuss some of that here in a few moments. Is there an internet literacy and healthy habits test I can give my kids before I decide if they're ready to own a phone? I'm not certain of a specific test, but we can have a quick discussion about that There's an area in our presentation where we kind of discussed a little bit about that. How do you check the security of someone else's device that is connecting to the Wi-Fi in the home? Again, that's I started to touch on that a little bit. I want them to show me what security software and uh, uh, what security components they have enabled on their phone. If I'm not comfortable with the level of security they've enabled on their phone, I just won't let it connect. I won't tell them what the password is. And you can control that by making sure that you control the password for your network. I've been known in my household many times to shut down internet access to individual appliances and devices that are on my network. I've got some specialized controls that allow me to do that. There are tools that are out there in some of the devices that we use as wireless access points. You can definitely look at what's available within the devices that you would be installing in your network to provide access. I touched on this a little earlier too. When you first get a new device, a new piece of software, you want to make sure it's updated. Just because it's new doesn't mean that it's got the most current software, the current firmware installed. Update everything on a regular basis, on a regular schedule. Set a reminder on your calendar. Make a particular day of the month an update day where you go around and make sure that you've got all of the devices on your network updated. That includes everything from your thermostat to your cell phone, your game console to your tablet. Everything has a software update that comes out once in a while. Those updates correct bugs in the software. The bugs are what the bad guys use to exploit those devices to sneak their way into your network and access your information. Passwords. Everybody remembers when nobody could find toilet paper on the shelves a couple of years ago. So one thing that we teach kids to do is come up with a silly sentence that gives you a mnemonic that will help you remember your password, like might need to buy toilet paper soon. This gives you the first letter of each word, the number 2, some capitals and lowercase, and a punctuation mark here that allows you to create a password that's more than 8 characters. I recommend more than 12 at this point. But it gives you a mix of uppercase and lowercase, a mix of letters and numbers and symbols, and it's not based on any sort of dictionary word that could be easily guessed. It's also not based on any personal information like a birthday or an anniversary or a kid's name or a pet's name. Those can all be easily guessed. Absolutely. Believe it or not, in these password lists that get passed around on the internet and the dark web, things like password are still in the top 5 passwords used globally. So make it more complicated, make it harder for the bad guys to get into your stuff. Just come up with a good system like this if you want to be able to memorize your passwords. Alternatively, you can also get a password manager. There's plenty of reputable password manager software packages out there that allow you to create a randomized password. And some of them will remind you to update your passwords on a regular basis. Some of them have both online and offline storage as well for your lists of passwords for all your different sites. We definitely want to have conversations about age-appropriate content and in-app purchases, time online. We need to start kind of setting the example. And there's plenty of tools that are built into all of our devices that help us manage all of these things. The iPads, the game consoles, the phones, the software that you have on your computers and your network devices. They all have some sort of settings. They all have family settings, parental controls, privacy settings, digital wellness settings. You want to go and find these things on all of these devices that you use. You can even make it a game with the kids. Okay, when you get them a new game console, when you get them a new game, you want to start looking for these things See how long it takes them to find those privacy settings, those security settings. Learn how to set them up, learn what they do, and ensure that you're using them on every device that's available, or where it's available. Let me see, kind of just saying yes or no. Let me see a show of in chat of how many people, how many households are Apple households. Just go ahead and say yes if you're an Apple household. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of yeses, a couple of no's, a few hybrid households. Okay, so Apple provides a tool that helps with some of this digital wellness and some of the parental awareness and control. It's iOS screen time. It allows you to do things like set screen time limits, adjust the type of content that your children can be exposed to. I'm not an Apple person, so I don't know the details about how to go through and set all of this stuff up. But I do know that it allows you to adjust who they're able to speak with. It allows you to manage and monitor what accesses they have, who they're allowed to communicate with, what apps they're able to access and install. The time, it can allow you to set time limits on these things as well. Gives you access to reports and information about their daily use and how much time they're spending on particular apps. If you can use, we don't encourage using this to necessarily just police their behavior, but we do also encourage you to use it to start a conversation about encouraging self-monitoring. Okay, when you see that they've spent too much time on Instagram and not enough time on homework, you can have that conversation with them and say, how do we start looking at this and adjust so that you're improving your time with your homework and less time on the digital devices. Okay, some of these tools will also have the content and privacy settings, allowing you to restrict some of the access that your children are able to see. Google, for the Android users, for all those non-yesers out there, that's my household. We use a lot of Android devices, a lot of Linux devices, a lot of those types of devices. Google has a product called Google Family Link. It's a web-based tool that also allows you to manage access and filter apps and limit screen time. And you can track the location of your child's cell phone. You can get geofencing alerts with some of their tools. So there's ways that you can, with each of these different platforms, that you can manage and monitor and limit and do some policing. But we also, like I said, encourage you to use all of that information that you collect to have conversations about improving their interactions with those digital devices. Anybody ever hear of YouTube? I'm certain you have. YouTube has a supervised account setting now that allows you to manage what your child is able to access when they access YouTube. I think the Explore feature gives them it's kind of content that's appropriate for like 8 to 11-year-olds. The Explore More setting is going to be 11 to 14-year-olds, and then the most of YouTube gets you into the more closer to adult content, but not quite. It's the 14 to 17-year-old crowd. Once they graduate beyond age of 17, I mean, they are adults. They should be able to have different types of access that is probably less supervised. Again, that's a conversation you have with your own kids. And as they're growing up, you can manage those conversations through the use of these tools, and you can have conversations about why you're using these tools to help them experience the internet and their digital world in a managed manner. Another show of yeses and nos. Anybody using TikTok, allowing their kids to use TikTok yet? No, 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 no. Usually we see a lot more no's with this. Okay. TikTok also has some family pairing tools. And it allows you to help manage their use of TikTok. I'm not a TikTok user. I've seen some TikTok videos, but it allows you to connect your phone and their phone, and allows you to limit their content and their time spent using TikTok. So when you go and set this up, it gives you those tools and those options to improve their digital well-being. The Instagrams and Instagram also has the family center and supervision tools. This doesn't allow you to necessarily control the content, but it does give you visibility into how much time they're spending on it, what they're using it for, who they're following and who's following them. You can't change any of that, but it does give you the information you need to, again, have those conversations. Snapchat is another one that also has family center features. They released a tool that allows you to monitor more, but again, it doesn't give you the ability to control the content, but it does give you the ability to kind of monitor what they're seeing and who they're communicating with. Roblox, another popular development tool and communications mechanism, also has similar controls and settings available. And again, when you go into these apps, it gives you the options to go in and set various types of privacy settings and security settings. And again, you want to have these conversations and discuss with your children how to find these settings. Make it a game so that you can both learn side by side how to get these things set up. Manage the privacy features so that they understand what they're sharing versus what they are preventing from being shared. Discord is another communications platform. A lot of times this is used for communicating with friends and other gamers, for those that are gamers. There's a lot of streaming that happens in this world. Again, you got to look at the security settings. These features allow you to manage who can see you, who can chat with you. And again, these tools are built into all these platforms these days. Some are better than others. Some are not quite so hot. But we definitely encourage you to go into each of these platforms that you have in your households and seek these features and these settings out. They will help you manage and not only the time spent on each of these devices, but also improve the digital well-being of your household, your youth. They also will they will encourage you to have those conversations about what security you have with each of these devices. And if it's difficult to kind of track all of those, we also have our own product. This is a free tool that allows you to build upon all of those settings that I discussed. It lets you use, it lets you better understand all of the tools that are being used on your children's cell phones and tablets. Allows you to build guidance, prohibit apps, prohibit content. I believe this blurs out images of inappropriate nature, things of that type. Just go to tmfamily.care. This is based on years and years of feedback and experience that we have in the industry, managing and monitoring all these types of different threats that are out there on the internet, and helping parents take a little bit more control of protecting their children's use of the internet. Let me take a quick look at the questions list, see if there's anything else here. Teaching kids about screen time and watching TV. Do we have a topic on the usage of electronic devices for 6 to 15 years? The recommendation that we always provide is that we encourage you to make the decision for your own family. Okay, not everybody is going to have the same situation, the same requirements. Some children mature faster than others. Some children become overstimulated more than others. Some children have a direct need for having a communications device. Maybe they walk home from school and you want to have that security of them having a phone on them. It doesn't always have to be a smartphone. If you're just looking for a communications device, find the situation that best meets the needs for your family. And also, I think I touch on this a little bit later, but we also encourage you to kind of give them an understanding that every household, every family is going to be a little different in what their needs are. And therefore, just because their best friend has the latest and greatest iPhone doesn't necessarily mean that's the right choice for your child and your family unit. And vice versa. Maybe it is the right choice for your family unit, but not the right choice for one of their friends. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about encouraging kindness amongst digital citizenship. So setting rules is what we do as parents. Everything has some sort of a rule around it. And I think generally the rules that we define are to encourage our children to grow up understanding boundaries, setting limits for themselves, protecting themselves from going outside of those boundaries where they could cause harm to themselves or others. So we want to encourage that behavior here as well. Once the environment is set up and you've locked down all those devices and they've got all the security software on them, and you've been managing and monitoring the apps that they're using, let's go ahead and talk about, have that conversation and include them in the conversation about what they're allowed to use, when they're allowed to use it. Is it appropriate to be using it in school? Can we use the cell phone in school in the classroom when the teacher's providing a lecture about today's assignment? Probably not a good idea. How long they can be on the devices, right? We want to set these time limits so that we can keep them from sitting in front of those screens for too long. Let's talk about where they're allowed to use their devices, okay, and with whom. We don't want them. Some kids are going to have access to more content and more apps than others. Maybe those apps and that content isn't necessarily appropriate to be shared with their friends. So you want to start these conversations early, and also kind of set the example in these concepts as well. Have these discussions about making sure that you are setting these same boundaries for yourself. Maybe not the exact same boundaries, but if they see that you're setting the what, when, how long, where, and with whom boundaries for yourself, they'll feel more comfortable adhering to those boundaries as well. When we do these presentations live, sometimes we have this flyer that we pass around to everybody. It's a little pie chart, represents a 24-hour day. And we encourage people to color in different sections and label them for different activities you do throughout the day. Activities that support your health, like sleeping, eating, getting some exercise, and outdoor time. How much of your 24-hour period of the day is spent doing that? What about learning activities, okay, such as school, homework, reading, or hobbies, right? How much of your time is spent throughout your 24-hour period with that? And then time with family, building relationships, having social networks, gatherings, going out and meeting with friends and doing social events. All of these things fill your day, fill the time. What time is left over, of course, after work and maybe school, what time is left over? Now we have a smaller portion of our day that we need to kind of look at. How are we filling that time? Is that time being filled with some of these other things, these other three boxes? Or are we just filling that time completely with time on digital devices? Make sure that we have a good balance between these different things. And then again, encourage your kids to understand what these different pillars are, or these different boundaries and activities are. Another thing that we often will do in the live sessions is we give a second pie chart out to the kids that are in attendance, and we say, do the same thing, but tell us what your parents are spending their time on. Sometimes having that exercise really opens up the eyes of the parents about how you're setting the example, how much time you're spending on your cell phone, talking to your friends and doing work and checking email, doing social media. The kids see this, they learn from it. If you don't want them doing those types of activities continuously and constantly, make sure you're taking a good look at yourself and how you're spending your time with these types of activities and on your devices as well. And definitely involve the kids, have them rate you on how well you're spending your 24 hours on these devices. I'm going to circle back for just a moment. There was a Spanish question that had to be translated. So you would say that we should have 2 or 3 services in the same home. Not necessarily. I think this is related to the devices and the network. I'm not saying that you need 2 or 3 services, but there are routers that allow multiple wireless networks to be created simultaneously broadcast off of one device. And that allows for you to separate your personal network from your more public network. And when I say personal network, I mean your office equipment, your printers, your work computers, your school computers. Those are going to be more business type activities, the things that you don't want necessarily being accessed by the less secure types of devices, such as gaming consoles and cell phones. If you have a guest wireless capability on your router, set that up for your less secure types of devices, like your Internet of Things, your thermostat, your smart devices, your Alexa, your gaming consoles, those types of things. That's where what you want on your guest network, and then have all your private business type equipment on your more private network. That's what I was trying to describe with the different types of routers. I hope that answers your question. Going back to setting the example, I think I touched on this quite a bit already, but kind of look inward at yourself. What example are you providing to your kids? Make sure that you're setting the example that you want them to emulate, because we all look at our kids and realize they definitely emulate us, whether we want them to or not. We have covered quite a bit, and we're basically only out of the first box. So let's move on to the being safe. Let's talk a little bit about privacy. I touched on this quite a bit already. There's plenty of privacy settings in all of these devices and all of these apps. And we encourage you to go through and, again, make a game of it. When you get a new game, a new console, a new system, look for that hamburger menu, look for that cog menu, and dig into the privacy settings. Find out what your kids are capable of discovering about what they're sharing online. This is the new version of stranger danger. You don't want them to be sharing too much. You don't want them to be sharing it all publicly. Maybe you don't even want it shared with their friends. Maybe you want it private with only specific individuals. When you go into any of these apps that you have, Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, the first thing that most of us do is skip right over all that legal jargon and click accept. Well, what are you actually accepting there? What are you telling that company that you are agreeing to? Generally, you have to assume nothing's private, because what you're really agreeing to is that the company you're sharing your information with is going to be allowed to use that information whenever, wherever, and however they choose. Okay? Just because you delete something from your profile doesn't mean that a backup of that data is not stored on that company's server somewhere where it could be later accessed by an employee or some sort of outside threat. So assume that nothing is private when you join these social medias sites, when you install these apps and agree to their terms. Anything that you post, anything that you submit, any photo, any personally identifying information is subject to being captured, retained, and used by those systems, by those apps, by those companies. And once those companies have access to it, you have to understand that if something out there in the world happens where those companies become compromised, that means somebody else has access to that information as well. One of the top threats to most companies is what we call an insider threat. Somebody who has appropriate permission to have access to data because they're an employee of the company, but then they decide to use it inappropriately. They use that access incorrectly. So we want to make sure that we're considering what we're sharing. We also want to consider and educate our children what they're clicking on, what they're chasing, what kind of clickbait is out there. There's plenty of fake social media posts, plenty of discussions out there that people want to get involved in because it's emotionally charged. There's ads that get injected into websites by third parties that could be completely bogus. And we always encourage children to understand that if it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So definitely, again, have those conversations with your kids. Here's a question for you, and I think I know the answer for probably a majority of you based on the age group that we defined earlier. But how many of your kids already have their own cell phones? There should be a little pop-up you can answer this on. This is a poll question. So A, yes, B, no, or C, I'm thinking about it. And again, this is kind of a personal question that you'd want to have a conversation internally for your own family. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here. And it seems like a good chunk of our youth in this conversation tonight already have their own cell phones. And that's probably because we're talking about the the middle aged group, the 11 to 14-year-old group from our earlier poll. And what we find is that that's common. The younger group, the 10 and under, they tend to not have access to cell phones quite often. And you really need to kind of gauge, again, your own child's maturity level, their own understanding of technology, their ability to maintain themselves using that technology. And I encourage you having these conversations, setting the boundaries, setting the rules. They need to understand that having a phone is a privilege. It's not necessarily a right. And in a lot of cases, they need to earn that privilege and demonstrate responsible use of that privilege. How many of you know that your child's cell phone has a camera on it? Okay, I'm sure that you definitely are fully aware of it. These cameras allow us to take pictures of every interesting thing that's out there. And we encourage good, appropriate use of the cameras. Take videos, have fun with it. Encourage artistic work that can be done with these cameras, right? There's a lot of social media that gets developed where fun stuff happens. But we also want you to be aware that these cameras can be used inappropriately. I don't want to scare you about this, but you need to be aware and concerned. There are youth as young as 9, maybe even younger, that get themselves into trouble by taking questionable pictures and sometimes sharing them. You need to have these conversations with your kids to make sure that they understand they should not be pressured in any way to share images that they're not proud of. They should never be encouraged or pressured into it. So definitely have these conversations in the best appropriate means for your family, and make sure that they really do understand that peer pressure, where you just want to be liked, and somebody's asking for an image that they may not be comfortable sharing. Make sure that they understand that's not required of them. It's not necessary, and also keep in mind in that conversation that once it gets shared, it's out of their control. Even if it's a benign picture that they're just unhappy with, it's a goofy face that they don't like. Remind them that they don't have to share it, but if it gets shared, it's out of their control. These images, these messages that they share with their peers, they can be copied, reshared, altered, sent on to others. And if they're not happy with it, then they should just keep it to themselves. One other thing that we had a parent ask once was, what happens if my child isn't sending those images, but what happens if my child ends up getting one of those images? Well, there's a very valid question. Cell phones typically are going to be paid for by the parent. It's in your name. And receiving inappropriate images of children is a crime. Having them on your devices is a crime. So the first thing that you need to do is report it. It's not necessarily your child's fault that they've received it, but encourage that conversation again. Have your child come to you with that information, and then take appropriate steps to report it to the local authorities, the school resource officer. They need to be aware of what's going on so that they can take appropriate measures and steps to dissuade that type of behavior. And if there's really criminal behavior occurring, they need to be aware of it so that they can follow those threads that they need to. They're not, when we're talking about school age kids, yeah, it's considered a crime, but they're not going to be hauling kids off to jail because they're making bad mistakes in most cases. But they do need to dissuade that kind of behavior. So definitely have those conversations again with your kids. Encourage that open door of communication so that they can come to you when they receive things that they're concerned about or that are inappropriate. So that the communication can continue to flow and they don't feel discouraged from having that avenue of communication with you. Gaming. All kids love games, it seems. It's a great way to practice skills, gain reflexes, build relationships, decompress. But if it's getting in the way of other healthy things, such as sleep, friendships, schoolwork, then you want to make sure that you set those time limits and those boundaries. One other thing that we also suggest is find games and encourage games that don't have open-ended play, such as like, for example, Minecraft is a great example. It's just an endless open-ended world that never ends, right? If you're playing a sports game, they have time limits. You reach the end of a period, you reach the end of a game, and then you have to kind of reset and start over, right? Something like Minecraft, though, you can just sit there and continuously play for hours and hours and get lost in that world. So we encourage games like Rocket League, NBA, Madden football, games that maybe are sports related or have defined time frames to them, so that you can kind of have that natural interrupt that occurs where you can pull away from the game system and take breaks or terminate the gameplay if to encourage better healthy habits as well. Being kind. I think we're doing okay on time, so I'll keep moving on. I'm not going to speed up too much. I talked a little bit about this, I think, in the intro. All kids know how to be kind. They know what unkindness is. They know what kindness is. They grow up being encouraged to use these skills, probably from preschool on. We all like it when people like our posts. We all like it when people encourage us to share more content. It makes us feel good. So we want to make sure that you're sharing kindness because it's the right thing to do, and we want our kids to understand that. We also want to make sure that our kids understand that kindness and unkindness online also reflects on themselves. It helps paint that picture of who they are online. We talk a lot about that when we're delivering this presentation to the kids. Actually, we tell them that everything that they share online, their images, their posts, their messages, their texts with their friends, anything that they put out there from the clubs and the sports that they participate in, kind of paints this digital picture of who they are. And we want them to understand that because it's there, and once it's there permanently. It can't really be retracted. You might be able to modify it a little bit. We just want them to understand that it definitely paints this picture of who they are, and they need to think internally about what kind of a picture they want people to see about themselves. And then look at, when they're looking at others, look at what their picture looks like. Encourage the same types of posts, the positive posts about others. Encourage your youth to promote kindness, privacy. Don't reshare things without permission of others. Make sure that you're understanding that kindness goes both ways. And if you see unkindness, make sure that you react in kind. We also want to encourage our youth to understand that they are so much more than whatever they post online. Okay. Everybody likes getting the likes, the thumbs up, the followers, and it makes us all feel good, the retweets, the friend requests. But they are more than the sum of just those likes and retweets and followers. Our kids they're emotional creatures. We need them to understand that just because they're not getting enough likes or followers doesn't make them a bad person. Okay. Sometimes people don't agree with the content. Sometimes people don't see the content. Um, One of the struggles that I had with my youngest, my 18-year-old now, growing up, was he was constantly struggling with comprehending why his friends weren't getting back to him quickly when he would send them messages. Um, we need our kids to understand that other youth in their lives, their peers, their friends, they have other things going on in their lives too. So if they're not responding quickly, it's not a reflection of who they are. It may just be that they're busy too. So make sure that we have these types of conversations with our kids as well. We want to, of course, not only nurture kindness in our kids, but educate our kids on how to nurture kindness in others. Be supportive of their emotional needs, of course, but also kind of be prepared. Ask yourself, there's a couple of questions you want to ask yourself when it comes to kindness. And that is, what would you do if your child is the victim of unkindness? Okay. You want to kind of answer that question for yourself ahead of time so that you're a little more prepared for when that eventual occurrence happens. Um, and we all wish that it won't, but it seems like it's going to happen at some point in your child's life. So the better you are prepared to respond to that, the better off your child will be capable of responding to that too. And then, of course, on the flip side of that, we all hope that it doesn't happen, but there are youth that are unkind to others. Sometimes that youth is our own child. So the other question I encourage you to ask yourself is, what would you do if your child is not the recipient of unkindness, but the one that created that unkindness online? Okay, started a rumor or made somebody feel bad, maybe even went so far as to what we would refer to as cyberbullying. How would you react as a parent to that? You need to think about these things ahead of time, because when it does happen, by that point, it's almost too late to react and try to figure out what to do and how to respond. So kind of develop a mental game plan ahead of time on how to respond to those two eventualities that might occur at some point in their digital lives. And of course, as we reiterate throughout this program, show them what kindness looks like. Lead by example. Find examples online of people being kind to one another and helping each other out. Okay. Good habits and good uses. Real or fake, real or not. Everybody has heard the discussions on social media and in the news about real news, fake news, fact checking, and all of that. It's so easy to not only replicate other people's posts and images, but it's also simple to alter them to the point where it's really difficult sometimes to identify what's real and what's fake. So let's encourage our kids to start asking questions, have some critical thinking skills. Ask the open-ended questions. Why was this made? Who made it? What's missing? What's included that shouldn't be? How might different people interpret this? How do I know it's true or untrue? Okay. Who's benefiting from me receiving this message or responding to this message? Who might be harmed by this information? Who might be harmed or benefit from my response or sharing of this message, right? Encourage these questions in your kids, because they're smart kids in almost every case. They're going to be able to quickly identify what doesn't quite feel right. And if they start asking these questions, it's going to help them better understand their digital world. It's going to help them guide their understanding of the media that they digest, and hopefully, with our encouragement, they'll be able to react appropriately to things that might not be factual or real. Um, Another thing that we always encourage is to look yourself up online and kind of set up alerts for yourself. Google has a tool, it's called Google Alerts, allows you to set up alerts for not only yourself, but your family members, right? So if somebody's searching stuff about your name or your address, it will allow you to set up an alert to send you information about somebody that's looking you up when somebody searches for your name or something. Another thing this tool can be used for is if there's an interesting topic that your youth is wanting to learn more about. It allows them to see when new information is posted about that topic online. Google's got just a wealth of information buried in their databases, and this allows you to create automated alerts to notify you of content that occurs online based on that information that on those keywords that you select in the Google Alerts tool. We also encourage you to look yourself up, not necessarily yourself, but find out if you have a digital twin out there. That can lead you down some interesting paths. Sometimes you might find somebody that shares your name, that might be mistaken for you, but a person that you may not really want to be associated with, and having that information, being armed with that information ahead of time, will give you an opportunity to respond to people inquiring about that what they found based on your name. This slide is kind of an interesting slide. This kind of reiterates everything that we've talked about painting that digital picture of yourself and your youth. The Kaplan Institute, for I think 10 or 15 years, has been asking universities if they look up applicants online to find out more information about them. And I think when they started asking this question, the number was probably somewhere around 25% of universities look up their applicants online. That number has grown to 66%. A vast majority of universities and colleges will look up their applicants online, looking to see what that individual has contributed to their digital picture. Unfortunately, what they find is about 57% of what they find tends to be things that made those universities or colleges reconsider whether or not they wanted that applicant attending their school. 38% of their findings, however, found something that made that applicant a little bit stronger. They found something good out there. So this information, take this back and kind of use this to help mold how your youth are using the internet, how your youth are using their time spent on digital devices for good and not bad, for kindness, not unkindness, and encourage them to kind of paint a good digital picture. Share their accomplishments, share their achievements. The colleges and universities don't want to find nothing. But they definitely want that green number, that 38%, to increase, right? They want to find good things that make their applicant much of a more strong applicant for their schools and universities. Some of those things that we're talking about that build that digital character, that digital citizen, and that digital picture that's going to be out there for probably the rest of their lives at this point, is spending time learning skills. Use the internet for what it was really kind of invented for, which is sharing information and learning skills. These days, with all the social media that's out there, there's plenty of causes to go around for them to promote and share and raise money for. We just had an event that benefited the Children's Miracle Network of hospitals. We spent 24 hours playing all sorts of games, raising money. I think the guy that runs that program, he cleared $25,000 over a 24-hour period this year. And that pushed us over 6 years. We've raised over $100,000 for that program. So there's definitely causes out there that can be promoted. Simple as your local scout program or your school youth group, raising funds for charities and organizations that your youth are involved in, sporting organizations. Get out there and create blogs, create social media posts, create social media pages where the accomplishments are showcased for your youth. Make them proud of who they are by showcasing those things and entering contests. We have our own contests. It's the Tell Us Your Story contest. It's available on our internet, Safety for Kids and Families. We encourage youth to develop a themed excuse me, a themed video. I think it's like a 2 to 3 minute video that they should develop based on this year's theme, and it can earn them. I don't remember the exact amount. It's either $1,000 or $10,000 for either themselves or their school, or a combination of the two. All the details are out there on our website. I just got a ping there. It's actually a $10,000 prize, and I think there's more than one prize available as well in that contest. So go and check it out, and encourage, if it seems like something that your kid's into, if they're into making videos, and it might be up their alley, definitely check it out and see if it's something that they would benefit from. And of course, just kind of as a wrap up, we encourage not only being online, but being safe online. Yeah, there's lots of different threats out there that you need to protect yourself from. Set up your environment to start with. Make sure that it's a safe working environment, that you limit the ability of those threats to get in. Protect yourself by not sharing too much information. One of the things that I always throw at the kids is when you go on vacation to Disney World, okay, when do you post that information about your vacation at Disney World? Do you tell them before you go and say, hey, we're going to Disney World tomorrow, we're going to be there for 3 days? Or do you share all the wonderful stories about Disney World and the photos when you get back? The kids think about it real hard, and they realize that if you share it ahead of time, you're telling everybody you're out of your house for a few days. So again, consider what you're sharing online. Teach your kids how to not share too much information to protect themselves and your family. Being kind to others, and to yourself. Don't allow others to diminish the quality of self through their posts and their information about you. And make sure that you're posting good, positive things about yourself and encouraging others to do the same. And then, of course, being savvy, using good habits, using using the internet for good, not bad, and promoting causes and promoting learning activities. Those are all things that we wrap up in this program. And like I said, I could go a mile deeper on any of these topics. In fact, if you need more information on any of these topics, we have plenty of other info out there at our website, trendmicro.com /internet-safety. In fact, that is on the next slide. We also have, for those younger crowds, the under 11 group, maybe even under 8. We have this new cyber academy that we launched about a year and a half ago, I want to say. These are short little 2 to 3 minute animated videos that talk about specific topics, several of which you see here. We have, I think, a total of 12 of these online now. But it includes a Kahoot quiz, an activity sheet, and a conversation guide for parents and teachers. We actually can go into classrooms and deliver this content in the classroom with the teacher's help as well. So, I mean, these are available in multiple languages. They're available online for free right now. So go check those out as well. helps you start some of these conversations with those younger kids. Once they get to probably 10, 11, 12, it's a little under their age level, but maybe if you have a couple of siblings, an older sibling and a younger sibling, maybe they can work through some of this together and teach each other as well. Again, same site, trendmicro.com/internet safety. Plenty of resources for parents, lots of walkthroughs, lots of conversations about how to get these security settings set up, and links to other organizations such as PTO Today and other organizations that'll help you garner a better understanding of the digital world and how to have these conversations with your kids and your family members as well, and how to set boundaries and rules and monitoring and everything that we've discussed. We also have a lot of these webinars recorded. So if you missed something and you want to go back and review it, a lot of the stuff is there. We also have some special webinars where we have special guests from other companies like Microsoft, and Microsoft's the only one that comes to mind, but they come in and have conversations with us as well. And then, of course, this session should be recorded and sent back to the school administrators that helped set up your access to this webinar tonight. So they should be able to have access to that as well. It'll probably be a few days before they get that recording to you or have it available to share to you. We do not put these recordings out totally publicly, not these specialized sessions like this, but also keep in mind that we also can do these in classroom or after school or at PTA meetings. We have, depending on your locale, we have plenty of volunteers throughout the country that can come into your schools and give presentations like this at grade and age appropriate levels as well. So let me take another look at the questions. I think I answered the question already about how to check the security of someone else's device that's connecting to the Wi-Fi in the home. Again, if it's not a device that you own and manage, definitely just ask them. Is it a good idea to post achievements in sports and other events for your child on Facebook? Would that help them later in college if it's posted from mom's account? I would say it's always encouraging to post achievements in sports and other activities and organizations. It's good, healthy encouragement for your youth. I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole a college or university is going to search to find those types of achievements on their family members' accounts. However, as your kids age, they will undoubtedly have their own access to their own social media accounts, and that's again, I don't know how far back colleges and universities will search. I don't think it goes all the way down to childhood, but if they have a place where that type of information is being collected over years, then definitely I would encourage it being available for that kind of searching. Maybe you turn it into a blog someday. I know when I was growing up, we had photographs, the snapshots that got taken, and we would turn them into picture books and kind of scrapbooks of sorts. Maybe make a digital scrapbook that shows the history of your child as they grow and as they participate in sporting programs and youth events and youth programs of that nature. So there's definitely ways that you can encourage that and share that so that it's out there when people that need to see it have it available to them. I hope that answers your question. I think that's most of the questions that we've received. Keep the conversation going with your kids. Keep the communication open. Encourage open communication, because kids they will feel embarrassed at times. My 18-year-old came to me 2-3 weeks ago, maybe it was 4 weeks ago now. He had a total bonehead move. I do this for a living, right? I'm a cybersecurity professional. He had a total bonehead move. he was waiting on a package. He got a text message saying that a package for him was delayed, and clicked this link so that they could reattempt delivery. He clicked on the link in the text message. The next thing it asked him for was $1 redelivery service fee. He clicked on that, filled out his information, gave him his bank card number, hit submit, and then realized what he had just done. It was an unsolicited text message from some unknown party. He compromised himself and his bank account in all of 30 seconds without thinking, because he, even though he knew better, and we've had this conversation 1,000 times, he just had a bonehead move. Within minutes, he was knocking on my office door saying, "Dad, I screwed up. I need your help." We had another conversation about it. We terminated the access to that bank account. We moved his money out of the account pretty swiftly to make sure that there was no real harm done. And we canceled his debit card. Did it within 10 minutes of him having that bonehead move. And then he had to sit without having access to his money for about 3 weeks while we waited on a replacement card to come. So it even happens to those in our profession. It's embarrassing, but you got to encourage your kids to come to you with those embarrassing stories, because you are the adult and you can help them work through that embarrassment and that emotional turmoil. So stay up to date, keep all your stuff up to date, continue updating everything. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to leave it. We've got a feedback link that I think is going to get posted to the chat. You feel free to fill out this feedback form. It helps us understand what was useful, what was not, helps us improve this program. And if you want to share in that feedback form, I think it is, your email, actually it's on the sign-in sheet according to this slide. Add your email to that sign-in sheet that you filled out at the beginning. And if you missed that, Kimberly, can we post that link as a second time or one last time as well for the sign-in? If you missed the sign-in, go ahead and do that sign-in. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what school you're associated with. And then you can win a free year subscription for up to 5 devices of our Trend Micro maximum security. I use it on my devices at home. It does the job. If you're not using our product, use some product. Go to Norton, go to Avast, go to McAfee. Use products that protect your devices and your appliances. Find those security settings throughout all of your devices. And again, like I said, encourage the kids to learn how to find those themselves, because it's a lifelong skill they're going to need going forward. And with that, I'm going to wrap that up. Thank you, gracias, and I hope that tonight's session was informational. And if you need more information, definitely go visit our website. We got a lot of good links and information out there. So thanks for joining me tonight, and I think I've kind of hit my mark on the time. Appreciate your attendance.